Unveiling the Sinister Legacy. The cursed Beaufort family's hidden terror and haunting revelation. The first breath of fresh air the Parker family took in Beaufort estates felt tainted with a sense of impending doom. As twilight settled in, they lit their lamps and settled down for what should have been a tranquil first night. Crickets chirped outside, their sounds harmonizing with the rustle of trees in the gentle breeze. But Mike Parker, exhausted yet hopeful, felt a weight on his chest that wouldn't let up. The newness of the situation felt too perfect, too welcoming. His instincts screamed that something lurked just beneath the surface as Jenna tucked the kids into bed. Their laughter rang sweetly in the air, but Mike perceived the shadows outside, shifting restlessly. He tried to dismiss it, a tired father's imagination, right? But then he sensed it, whispers, low, furtive voices drifting from the neighboring houses. Closed doors, blinds drawn tight. He caught fragments, the Beauforts, the dark rituals, the curse like split-second glimpses into a murky world that threatened to swallow them whole. The unease settled in like a storm cloud. Porch lights flickered in sync, pulsing, distracting Mike from the comforting sounds of kids' laughter and crickets chirping. His heartbeat quickened. He glanced at Ben, sound asleep, but a shiver ran down his spine when he recalled his son's unsettling musings about an invisible friend that spoke to him in whispers, low, hypnotic, and seductive. Dread crept in, but they moved on, tossing the brewing panic aside to explore the attic the next day. What wonders await us? Jenna joked lightly, but her smile faltered as they climbed the rickety stairs. What they discovered wasn't playful, it was a hidden room behind a crumbling wall. Dust danced in the beam of the single, flickering light that hung perilously above. Mike's heart raced. The air felt thick as if it carried secrets yet to be unveiled. Their fingers grazed ornate relics and unsettling photographs, each one a snapshot of twisted history. One photo pinned against the wall alarmed Jenna, a family portrait of the Beauforts portrayed smiling faces that morphed into something grotesque. Their features seemed warped with horror, eyes hollow and depths of despair inviting them in. The dusty, leather-bound books sprawled across a table whispered their own ghastly tales, unveiling horrific family secrets that rang with blasphemous rites that had once taken place right under their feet. Mike's blood ran cold. His instincts warned him to leave. They had to get out. But this quiet facade of suburbia was more than meets the eye. The seemingly friendly neighbors watched with flickering, nervous glances. Their smiles curved earnestly but faltered when the Beauforts surfaced in conversation. Tension crackled in the air behind their forced congeniality. And then came the series of strange occurrences. Late nights turned into troubling confrontations with silence. Symbols arcane, mystifying started appearing inscribed into their backyard. And that knocking, who was doing it? No one was around, yet the sound reverberated through the night, quickening their hearts and rustling their nerves. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The Parkers' world narrowed, bringing them deeper into paranoia, each creak of the floorboards a potential threat. Was someone lurking? Was it all in their heads? Mike couldn't know for sure, but dread became palpable when a distant wail sliced through the dark, a chilling sound that sent shivers spiraling down his spine. Now, with cold sweat pooling on their brows, the family was on a precipice of revelation. The sanctuary they thought they'd found was tethered to a sinister legacy, a curse entwining them with the haunted history of the Beauforts. Clutching each other tight, they felt the darkness closing in the shadows, pulling them further into the unknown. Then they heard it, soft and innocent at first, but dripping with malice as it echoed from the attic, a child's laughter. It grew louder, soon accompanied by an irresistible whisper that hung in the air, sending a spine-chilling message to Mike and Jenna. You can't escape the curse. Panic surged through Mike as the laughter enveloped them. It reverberated off the attic walls, a chilling melody that carried years of sorrow and malevolence. "What is happening?" Jenna whispered, her grip tightening around Mike's arm. "No idea," he hissed back, dread creeping up his spine. Common sense battled the mounting hysteria should they confront the source of the laughter or flee. Before Mike could decide, a sudden crash echoed from the attic, sending them tumbling backward. Heart racing, he stared wide-eyed at the crumbling wall, fragments of plaster littering the floor. Something was alive in that attic, something that feasted on fear. "Ben?" Jenna gasped, darting toward the kids' room. The door swung open, revealing their son still asleep. Mike's relief was short-lived as another echoing laugh rippled through the house, this time more sinister, layered with cries of unseen children. It had ensnared them, claws deep in their reality. "Stay here," Mike urged Jenna, pulling her back before she could reach Ben. He'd be damned if he let whatever haunted this house near his child. He knew just outside that door, darkness lurked, mocking him with each breath. The laughter turned into whispers, swirling around them. "Tangible and vile, join us, shut it out." "Mike," Jenna pleaded, but her voice trembled, barely above a whisper. How could she prevail against such haunting echoes? The familiar thud of knocking began again, this time rhythmic, a dirge pounding through the walls of their home. Felt like a heart beating. Their home. Was it still theirs? Was it even a home? A glimmer of defiance surged within Mike, igniting a sense of urgency. They couldn't resign to fear. They had to unveil the truth, what lay beneath the surface of constant whispers and unsettling laughter. "We have to face it," he forced out, inching forward. "Are you insane?" Jenna's eyes were wide, glistening with unspoken terror. "We can't. What if it's dangerous? Do we have any choice?" He spat back, half desperate, half resolute. The laughter echoed again, seemingly in agreement. "Besides," he added, "we have to protect Ben." With a trembling hand, Mike pushed through the creaking attic door. A chill swept over him, the air growing dense as a cloud of despair tightened around them. The flickering light illuminated the room, a theatrical performance of shadows. They saw something, a figure darting between the beams, vanishing just as quickly as it appeared. "What was that?" Jenna cried, but Mike remained silent, focused on each sound that gnawed at his sanity. The laughter had changed. It turned darker. Each note twisted, a taunting reminder of a truth buried too long. The walls felt like they were closing in. A shadow moved again, settling in the corner. "Mike," Jenna's voice trembled, the fear pooling in her eyes. "What do you want?" he called out, his voice trembling, barely breaking through the laughter. Silence followed, and then the shadows stirred, coiling around the edges of the dim light. He took a step back, heart hammering. Then everything froze. The air felt heavy. An unsettling crack reverberated through the house, and a wall began to shift. Another hidden room peeled back like the layers of a festering wound. "No, no, no." Mike's instincts screamed, but it was already too late. The whispering grew louder, almost cohesive, brushing past their ears like chill fingers. "Find us. Join us," it beckoned. A wave of nausea rolled through Mike as he felt the weight of unseen eyes upon them, a collective stare, one filled with anticipation, and a hunger that quickened his breath. In an instant, Jenna's terrified gasp shattered any illusion of safety. "Look!" From the shadows, broken figures emerged with hollow eyes and grotesque smiles, a family of the Beauforts, forever entwined in their nightmares. And at their feet, a child's toy lay abandoned, its laughter now a chilling reminder of a promise that could not be unmade. "Run!" Mike yelled, but before they could move, the shadows rushed forward, wrapping around them like a suffocating fog. A final echo of laughter echoed through the attic as they fell into darkness, a chilling reminder that the curse was only just beginning. What awaited them in the darkness? What secrets did the shadows hold? The darkness swallowed them whole. Mike's stomach lurched as he felt Jenna's grip slip away. "Jenna!" His voice sliced through the heavy air, but it was swallowed by the shadows, echoing back in cruel mimicry. Panic stabbed at him. He spun on the spot, disoriented, searching for her silhouette against the void. "Mike!" Her voice came faintly, barely breaking the oppressive silence. He turned toward it, heart racing, straining to catch a glimpse. The whispers grew louder, a horrifying symphony of wails and laughter merging. Join us, it was an invitation. But from where? He forced himself forward, pushing through the smothering darkness. The walls pulsated around him, alive and breathing, retreating and advancing like the tide. Each footstep felt like a forgotten echo, resounding with uncertainty. He wanted to scream for help, but the fear twisted in his throat, stealing his voice. Stay close, Mike called, trying to project strength through the tremors in his heart. The sounds of the shadows morphed into something richer, filled with the glee of children playing a sickening contrast to the terror that surrounded him. Every corner seemed to close in tighter, every flicker of the dying light drawing out the sinister spirits that roamed freely. Suddenly, the temperature dropped as he stumbled into an opening. With effort, he squinted through the gloom and glimpsed a dimly lit room. It was lined with dusty frames, portraits of the Beaufort family staring with hollow eyes. They felt alive, their gazes smoking with an imposing gravity, mocking his presence in that cursed space. Jenna's whisper came from the shadows again, closer this time. Relief swelled within him as he spun toward the sound. Hear her before she could finish. A wail erupted, piercing through the musty air. Mike's blood froze as swirling shadows coalesced, growing denser and darker. The laughter was no longer mindless. It had a purpose, a malignant intent. Jenna! He dashed back into the darkness, hands reaching wildly for her. Desperate now. They had to escape. But just as he turned, a shape loomed from the shadows, filling the space around him and halting him in his tracks. The grotesque figure of a child, face stretched into a ghastly grin, reached toward him, fingers elongated like claws pointing. Come play, it sang, the voice a twisted echo of innocence. Get away from me, Mike screamed, flailing his arms as he stepped back, horrified. But the figures took shape behind him. Their silhouettes merged into one, a grotesque amalgamation. Faces veiled in shadow, eyes glimmering with a malevolence that froze his very soul. Jenna finally broke through the darkness beside him, her eyes frantic. They're everywhere. Not for long a voice whispered, smooth and alluring, intermingling with the shadows. The figures surged forward, surrounding them like a terrible embrace. He could feel their cold breath against his skin, a beckoning chill that promised more than death, promised eternity in despair. With every stolen heartbeat, realization crept in. This was no ordinary haunting. It was a snare, a legacy of the Beauforts, a fate that awaited anyone who dared to uncover the family's dark secrets. We have to. Jenna's voice faltered as the figures loomed closer, their laughter melding into a cacophony of haunting delight. Be brave, Mike pleaded. They couldn't let this be their end. Not now. Not when Ben was waiting for them. Hold on. But before he could even try to face the figures, a blinding white light erupted from somewhere deep within the shadows. It engulfed them, momentarily dispersing the gathering darkness. For a split second, it shattered the curse that clung to their souls. What is that? Jenna screamed, half in relief, half in dread. The shadowy figures recoiled, shrieking as they danced back into the depths. But the light began to waver as it encroached upon its own limits. Let us go, Mike shouted, feeling his way toward the source of brightness. They darted away, but the sinuous laughter returned, echoing, gaining strength, rising to a fever pitch, a warning of what they had awakened in the attic. Would the light be enough to save them, or was this a trap designed to lead them further into despair? As they fled toward the flickering glow, they could hear the pulse of the house, a heartbeat that drummed steadily, mocking their every move. Their next step was uncertain, but they were determined to find their way out. All they would need to do was survive long enough to escape the truth that lay waiting just beyond the light. Will this lead us to safety, or deeper into the darkness? Mike wondered, heart hammering, as the walls shivered with the weight of restless whispers. The blinding light flickered, casting sharp shadows that writhed around them like living entities. Mike and Jenna, holding on to the last threads of hope, pushed forward toward the glowing warmth, its promise slicing through the icy grip of the darkness. But with each step, the laughter grew louder, filling the air with the stench of decay and torment. "Keep moving," Mike urged, a tremor in his voice as he felt the eyes of the shadows upon him, their silent judgment weighing heavily in the air. The cold fingers of despair entwined around his heart, squeezing tighter with every fleeting moment. "We can't stop." They stumbled forward, the brightness illuminating their way for short bursts, revealing the grotesque history etched into the wall's bloody handprints marred the faded wallpaper. And words, scratched hastily into the wood, whispered terrible truths. "Don't look back. Never look back." "Mike, what do they mean?" Jenna gasped, nearly tripping as she caught sight of the inscriptions. The dread in her eyes made his chest tighten painfully. "Just don't look back," he shouted, as much for her sanity as for his own. But the shadows lurked behind them, taunting, relentless. A soft, rustling sound floated through the air, like the gentle caress of fingertips brushing against the nape of his neck. He felt an urge to turn, to confront whatever was stalking them, but he pressed on, forcing his legs to obey his terrified mind. "Go," in a chilling voice broke through the noise, slithering around him. The light. It was a command laced with malice, resonating deep within the marrow of his bones. For a heartbeat, Mike hesitated, torn between the ethereal sanctuary ahead and the dark whisper behind him. "Don't listen to them," Jenna screamed, pulling at his arm. Panic surged through her, igniting his own. Just then, the light sputtered and dimmed, sending the shadows darting closer, their laughter morphing into howls of victorious rage. The walls began to shimmer, revealing fleeting images of the Beaufort family's smiling faces twisted into feral expressions, their eyes unnaturally bright. It was as if they were watching, waiting for their moment to join the living and finish what they had begun. The brightness flickered feebly again, and in that moment, Mike spotted a door at the edge of the room. "There," he pointed, adrenaline pumping through his veins. "It may be their only chance." They dashed towards it as if propelled by an unseen force, Jenna's breath quickening beside him, a relentless harmony of fear and resolve. Just as they reached for the door, the shadows surged forward. "Play with us," they chorused, voices layered with another sinister melody. Mike flung the door open, a cacophony of sounds spilling out, eclipsing the laughter. It was a long, narrow passage, half illuminated by the pale flicker of wall sconces, begging them to enter. They plunged inside, and the door slammed shut behind them with a resounding boom that stole the breath from their lungs. Inside the passageway, the grip of the shadows felt weaker, but relief was fleeting. "Where are we?" Jenna's voice trembled with uncertainty. The flickering sconces cast eerie shapes along the wall's torn tapestries, celebrating joyful family gatherings now fraught with sadness, and faded photographs that seemed to shift when unobserved as they paced cautiously. Micah's eyes darted to the floor. A trail of dark, sticky substance led deeper into the passage, a stark contrast against the cold stone. "What the hell is that?" He knelt closer, heart racing anew. An ominous chill swept through him as he recognized the metallic scent. "Blood." "Mike," Jenna warned, pulling at his sleeve. We should go back." But the walls around them began to shift, narrowing, cornering them deeper within. The whispers escalated to a fever pitch, drowning out his thoughts. "Join us? Play forever. Run," he yelled, grabbing Jenna's hand as he bolted forward, desperate to escape whatever they had unwittingly stirred. The path twisted, forcing them to choose between deeper darkness or a faint flicker just ahead. Some semblance of safety or another trap. But as they broke into an opening filled with the echoing whispers of the Beaufort children, Mike's heart sank. There, hanging in the air like a shroud, were family portraits bearing the haunting resemblance of Jenna. "No," Jenna choked, her voice betraying her fear. "Why do they look like me?" "Not now," Mike urged, pulling her forward just as the shadows coalesced, their chilling laughter crashing around them like waves. "What is happening?" As the darkness surged, ready to consume them whole, Mike and Jenna saw a doorway at the far end lit by the faintest glimmer of hope. "There!" Mike shouted, just as the shadows lunged toward them once more. "Will we make it out, or is this where it ends?" In that moment Jenna screamed. But it was too late. The shadows closed in, and the light flickered uncertainly behind them. The air crackled with tension as Mike and Jenna dashed toward the doorway's glimmer, their hearts pounding like war drums in their chests. The shadows clawed at their heels, their laughter morphing into a jarring harmony of taunts that seemed to penetrate their very souls. "Faster!" Mike urged, instinct screaming at them that time was running out. He reached for Jenna's hand, gripping it like a lifeline. As they hurtled through the doorway, the sounds of the frightened past rushing in like a tidal wave, they stumbled into a vast, dimly lit room adorned with remnants of the Beaufort family's life. Once a sanctuary, it was now a mausoleum dripping with despair. Old furniture lay covered in dust, memories trapped behind the glass of forgotten picture frames. A chill seeped into their bones as they moved deeper, the door slamming shut with an ominous finality behind them. "Do you feel that?" Jenna whispered, her breath fogging in the icy air. The shadows outside thumped against the walls, sounding almost like a heartbeat, echoing the dread that climbed up Micah's spine. I do," he admitted, scanning the room's corners where the light barely touched. The portraits on the walls, a macabre collection of the Beaufort lineage, seemed to watch closely, their painted eyes glimmering with something sinister. Jenna took a hesitant step towards the nearest portrait, mouth agape. "Mike, look, they're all different, but they all have something in common." He joined her, heart racing, as he studied the family. Each face was an iteration of Jenna's features, twisted and grotesque, their smiles not just unnatural but malicious, as if harboring secrets too dark to whisper. "This isn't right," Jenna muttered, an icy stab of realization gripping her. What are they trying to say? Before he could respond, the flickering lights overhead buzzed violently, plunging the room into darkness. Mike felt a strangling fear latched around his throat. In that instant, a low, gravelly voice seeped from the shadows. "You think you can escape our legacy? Who are you?" Mike demanded, the boldness in his voice thin and wavering. "We are the echoes of choices made, of lives entwined," the voice answered. "You are drawn here for a reason, child. Stop playing with us." Jenna shouted, her voice breaking as she clutched at Mike's arm. "What do you want?" The shadows in the corners of the room curled tighter, almost amused. "To inherit is to understand. Will you take up your mantle? To be one with the family?" "No," Mike yelled, stepping forward to shield Jenna from whatever was lurking in the corners. His pulse raced, pounding a dangerous message into his brain. "Fight or flight." The voice continued, hissing like steam escaping a kettle. "Blood binds us. Your blood runs thick in our veins. You cannot sever the ties." A sudden crash echoed from the far side of the room, drawing their attention. The flimsy shelving buckled and toppled, spilling ancient artifacts to the floor with ear-splitting clatter. Amongst the chaos was a shadowy mass forming, twisting out of the remains a figure emerging from the dark depths. "Help me, don't leave me," it pleaded, but the voice was unmistakably a mockery of Jenna's own. "Run." Mike pulled Jenna, dragging her away from the horrific apparition as it reached for them, its face echoing Jenna's likeness but distorted, eyes hollow with despair. "No," Jenna cried, torn between her instinct to flee and an unexplainable urge to confront the figure. But Mike's strength was unwavering. He pushed them toward a passage on the opposite wall, the shadows writhing angrily behind them. With every step deeper into that passage, the laughter crescendoed like an orchestra of madness, filling the air thick with fear. "Will you escape what you are? Find the truth? Or become like us?" The passage grew tighter, forming a suffocating tunnel that seemed to pulsate with a life of its own. Mike felt Jenna's grip slip, panic spiraling around him. He turned to see her face, twisted in horror and confusion. "Mike, what if this leads us back? What if it's a trap? Then we'll face whatever comes," he breathed, determination igniting within him. Together. But before they could push onward, a cold wind swept through the tunnel, carrying with it whispering voices that promised revelation. And just beyond the darkness of the passage, the flicker of light beckoned temptingly. "What's ahead?" Jenna whispered, doubt seeping in again. "Only one way to find out," he replied, tension crackling like static. They exchanged one last look before plunging into the unknown, the shadows laughing behind them, eager to reclaim what they thought was theirs. What lay ahead in that labyrinth of terrible truth? Would they uncover the dark history that connected Jenna to the cursed family? Or fall into its endless grip? The passage narrowed until it felt like they were crawling through a snake's belly, each breath pulling in stale, damp air that stung their lungs. Jenna's heart pounding in her ears drowned out the mocking laughter echoing behind them. Shadows clung to their backs, promising darkness and despair if they dared to turn around. "Keep moving," Mike urged, tugging Jenna along as dread burrowed into his thoughts. Images of the disfigured figure flashed, an unsettling reflection of Jenna, twisted by whatever horrors bound the Beaufort legacy. The faint flicker ahead grew brighter but ominous too, as if teasing them with hopes of an escape that would snatch them away at the last moment. "Do you think it's real?" Jenna whispered, her voice trembling, as if the very walls absorbed the fear in their statements. "Or just another trick?" "Only one way to find out," Mike replied grimly, clutching her hand tighter, every instinct screaming for them to flee, yet they forged on. The shimmer of light spilled out from the far end, filling the tunnel with a golden haze tainted by an unsettling chill as they neared the exit. The sound grew sharper, whispering voices weaving a tapestry of anguish and rage. "You cannot hide from the truth. It will find you, do you hear that?" Jenna gasped, her eyes widening in terror as she paused, hesitant to step into the light. The whispers grew louder, spiraling around them like a tempest, making her stomach churn. "Jenna," Mike began, but was interrupted as something slammed against the wall behind them, a resounding thud reverberating through the narrow passage. The shadows reacted, writhing angrily, as if trying to protect their secret. "Go, now!" He pushed Jenna ahead, fear gripping him like an iron vice. They stumbled into the room, a vast chamber glowing ominously with flickering lights. A table sat in the center, covered in yellowing pages and faded photographs, depicting the Beaufort family in various states of joy and horror. The walls trembled with a history etched in despair. The light cast eerie shadows that flickered wildly, further distorting Jenna's reflection in the beveled mirror hanging on the wall. Mike felt it, a sickening familiarity, as if he were watching her face shift and twist like the portraits they had seen earlier. "Mike, they're all of me," Jenna whispered, eyes darting between the images. "Every single one." No, this can't be," Mike stammered, panic coursing through him. Each photograph showed Jenna in some twisted version of joy. But the eyes, they burned with something dark, something sinister, hollowness etched in every smile. "There has to be a way out, right?" Jenna murmured, stepping closer to the table, her fingers trailing over the objects there. "Look at this," she said, lifting a rusted locket revealing a grainy image tucked inside. A child's face with striking similarities to her own. The room grew heavier, suffocating with dread. The whispers rose into anguished wails, echoing Jenna's name, mocking and pleading. "Join us. Jennifer, awaken the legacy, stop it," Mike yelled, grabbing the locket from her hands and tossing it aside, its fragile contents spilling out. "We need to go. Now." The room quaked, shadows racing towards them, claws of darkness ready to ensnare. Mike felt pull, the oppressive force of the cursed lineage closing in. "Fight it! Jenna, we have to fight it!" he shouted, but Jenna stood frozen, mesmerized by the visions of her past. Her face flickering between different lifetimes as she struggled to break free from the thrall of the cursed family. "I need to understand," she whispered, but Mike could feel the air shifting, could hear the darkness pulsing, waiting for her surrender. "No." He lunged towards her just as the shadows leaped from the walls, surging in a dark wave, poised to reclaim what was theirs. "Jenna!" he screamed, panic surging through him as he reached for her, desperation clawing at his chest. Time slowed as the shadows rose higher, closer. Would he pull Jenna back before the darkness swallowed her whole? The echoes of laughter rose, mingling with Jenna's cries. For understanding. What truth lay beneath her family's cursed history? Would they uncover the pain? Or would the shadows of the Beaufort legacy finally claim them? The last light flickered dangerously. In that moment, everything hung in the balance. A deafening silence swallowed the room for an instant, stretching time impossibly thin. Shadows crackled with a life of their own, swirling around Mike as he lunged. He could see Jenna's eyes, wide and glazed, shimmering with the weight of realization and dread. "Jenna!" he shouted again, diving through the inky darkness toward her, desperation thrusting him forward. Just seconds felt like hours. He could hear his heartbeat thundering in his ears, each beat a reminder of what was at stake. The darkness pulsed, hungry and alive, and Mike felt the cold breath of the shadows as they brushed against him, their whispers drowning out his thoughts. "Join us," they hissed. "Embrace your heritage, fight it." The words fled his lips like a prayer, urgent and raw. Every inch closer to Jenna felt like wading through thick tar, pulling him down into despair. Her gaze finally met his, snapping out of her trance. The realization crashed over her like a tidal wave, and she stumbled back as if struck. "Mike, I can't know." He grasped her wrist tightly, a lifeline amidst the chaos. "You can't give in. We're stronger than this." As Jenna struggled, flashes of images erupted around them, each more grotesque than the last faces of ancestors twisted in agony, past horrors alive once more. One fleeting face caught Mike's eye, the boy from the locket. The resemblance was uncanny, his dark curls a mirror image of Jenna's. "Let go of her." The voice thundered from the walls, an echo of authority that snapped both of them back into the moment. It burrowed deep into their minds, a command that chilled Mike's blood. "Do what it wants," Jenna muttered, her determination faltering like a candleless flame. "It might be easier, no. We fight together." He pulled her closer, forcing her to meet his fierce gaze. "Remember why we came here. We uncover the truth. You owe that to yourself." The laughter rose again, taunting, like fingernails scraping across the glass. The oppressive shadows thrashed wildly, desperate to reclaim what had been lost. In that moment, Jenna's resolve solidified just a fraction more. Okay, she exclaimed, breathing heavily. "I want to understand. But what if the truth is worse than we imagined? Better to face it than to hide." Mike fired back, refocusing on the table, desperate for an answer. The relics seemed to pulse with energy, each object a manifestation of their family's torment. In one final act of defiance, he swept his hand over the table, knocking journals and photographs to the floor. At once, the room shrieked, a cacophony of anguished voices surrounding them. "You've awakened the legacy." Suddenly, a book flipped open on its own accord, pages turning feverishly until it landed on a portrait that seemed to glow. It depicted a figure, cloaked in shadow but with unmistakably familiar features. Jenna inhaled sharply. "That's me, or it will be. Look closer," Mike urged, chest tight with fear and determination. He could feel the air shifting, energy building. This was the pivotal moment. As Jenna leaned in, the darkness closed around them, constricting, demanding submission. The wails grew unbearable, drowning out reason. "Jenna!" Mike shouted, but the shadows coiled tighter, dragging her closer to the altar of despair. With an ear-splitting roar, the room surged forward, collapsing the distance between past and present. The memories splintered into fragments, a whirlwind of torment, truth, and legacy blurring together. In that moment, Mike felt the ground shift, an intense pull that whispered promises of fate and family intertwined. This is our chance. Could they confront the dark truth buried deep within the Beaufort legacy? Or would the shadows consume them both, sealing their fate in the torment that had claimed so many before? The darkness clawed at Jenna, the mirror of her family dragging her in. As her name echoed in the void, they both realized the true horror was yet to be unveiled. A final scream pierced the silence. What would it reveal? The world around them twisted, and Mike felt the air grow thick with despair. Shadows wrapped around him like a second skin, pressing down until every breath was a struggle. Jenna was slipping, her body wavering against the relentless pull of the darkness. "Fight! Just fight!" he roared, his voice trembling with desperation as he clung to her wrist. The shadows writhed, hissing their contempt, and for a moment, the room flickered with fragmented images, an ancestral feast gone wrong. Faces contorted in terror, screams marked in eternity. "Mike, I don't know how," Jenna gasped, her skin growing colder, the chill from the shadows seeping into her bones. They were memories, faint echoes of those who had come before, clawing their way into consciousness. "You do," he urged, squeezing her wrist tighter. "You're stronger than them. We're meant to break this cycle." But doubt flickered in her eyes as flickers of her own past assaulted her senses. Countless nights spent staring at the family tree, desperate questions echoing unanswered through time. The roots of the Beaufort family ran deep, entangled in darkness and buried sins. Mike glanced at the table again, the relics that once held meaning now shrouded in malice. Each object pulsated, resonating with a dark energy that threatened to consume them. "Look," he cried, redirecting her focus to the glowing portrait in the open book. "Don't you see? That's your future unless we stop this." Jenna's gaze turned rigid, and Mike sensed her resolve wavering again. The shadows recoiled as if feeding off her uncertainty, and their whispers shifted to a more sinister tone. "Embrace your destiny, be one with us." "No," Mike shouted defiantly, shaking her. "Remember what they did. They didn't protect you. They let this curse fester. Don't you want to break free?" For a fleeting second, clarity flickered within Jenna. She shook her head violently, as if to dislodge the whispers that grew louder, more demanding. "Mike, I feel them. It's so hard to resist." The cacophony of despair around them swelled, a symphony of anguish that throbbed like a wound. "Please, Jenna," he implored, willing her to break free from the grasp of their ancestors. "Don't let them win." In that moment, something shifted. The portrait's glow intensified, casting a blinding light that fought against the darkness. Jenna inhaled sharply, a breath fueled by newfound resolve. "No more. I choose my own path." With a forceful heave, she pulled herself back from the precipice, ripping Mike along with her. The shadows roared, furious at this sudden act of rebellion. The air crackled, and for a moment, the darkness paused, uncertainty rippling through its tendrils. "Now," Mike shouted, heart pounding. "We need to find the source of their power. The truth will set us free." Together they stumbled, the shadows' reach still snaking around them, but Jenna's will crystallized. With every step toward the table, the relics glowed brighter, the memories swirling in a frenzy of historic horrors. They had to unveil the secrets that shackled their bloodline. A flicker of movement caught Mike's eye, something darting in the shadows, an object, small yet pulsing with energy. "What's that?" He pointed toward the darkness, pulse racing. But before Jenna could answer, shadows surged forward, a tidal wave of dark intent collapsing around them. The darkness roared, a crushing sound that threatened their very existence. "You will not escape. You will inherit the legacy or you will perish." Just beyond the veil of shadows, something glimmered, a key throbbing with potential. "Jenna, we have to reach it," Mike urged, adrenaline coursing through his veins. But as they moved closer, the agony of their ancestors clawed at them, transmuting fear into physical pain. Could they truly confront what lay at the center of this cursed legacy? The echoes of history loomed large, ready to strike. The looming question scratched at their minds. Would they be the ones to break the cycle or become another lost part of it? The shadows lunged at them, a roaring tempest of despair and rage, pulling back as Mike and Jenna scrambled forward. The key, glistening and pulsating with energy, shimmered like a beacon against the encroaching darkness. The ancient weight of their family's grim history pressed in from all sides, but the glimmer forced a desperate determination into their hearts. "Just reach for it," Mike shouted, every muscle in his body taut, straining against the pressure closing in on them. He could feel the icy fingers of the shadows wrapping around his legs, chilling him to the bone, as the cacophony of suffering swelled around their ears. Jenna's hand stretched toward the light, fingers brushing against cool metal. A jolt surged through her, electrifying her with a sensation of raw power, strength rooted in identity. "I can feel them, Mike. They're angry. Let them be angry," he barked, the screams of their ancestors ringing loudly in his mind, mingling with Jenna's own anxiety. "You have to believe you're more than what they made you." As she wrapped her fingers around the key, a searing vision filled Jenna's mind. Thoughts of her ancestors' failures, sacrifices, and rage flooded her consciousness. It was an overwhelming rush that threatened to drown her. She gasped, her breath caught in her throat. But beneath the weight of their history, a surge of defiance began to break through. The moment she gripped the key firmly, an explosive force surged between them, pushing back against the shadows. The darkness hissed in retaliation, angry, swirling like a storm as the relics on the table rose in a chaotic dance, illuminating the room with ghostly light. "Do it, Jenna," Mike shouted, feeling the shift in energy. "Unlock it. We need to find the truth." Jenna's heart raced as she thrust the key toward the trapped shadows, the core of their family's torment. In one swift motion, it surged forward. A stunning array of light exploded, momentarily illuminating the shadows before they shrieked, twisting and howling. The air crackled with vibrating energy, making her hair stand on end. "Time to set you free," she cried out, voice trembling yet fierce. She couldn't ignore the more malevolent shadows clawing at her sanity. Suddenly, she sensed something darker lying beneath, an unnameable abyss. The key's light pulsed as whispers of long-buried truths wrapped around her mind, tinged with a sense of sinister familiarity. "Jenna!" Mike yelled, horror creeping into his voice as he noticed her faltering. "Stay with me." But she was slipping again, the childhood memories twisted into gnarled recollections, merging with the cries of anguish that permeated their bloodline. "It's too much," Jenna stammered, only partially aware of the shaking grip Mike had on her. The shadows swarmed again, darker, more ominous, feeding off her weakness. "You belong to us, Jenna," they hissed, voices converging into a haunting symphony of despair. "Embrace the truth." With a violent heave, she clamped her eyes shut, determined to drown out the cacophony of torment. "This isn't my legacy," she bellowed, the words breaking the chains binding her spirit. "I make my own fate." In an explosion of light, the key unlocked something deep within the shadows. Jenna felt the weight lift, clarity returning to her mind. The darkness began to crack, forming fissures of light like rays of hope piercing a night sky. There, swirling within, was the distorted visage of her family's past, painful, damning, yet essential to their freedom. The air weighed heavier now, closing in like a vice. The illusion of victory quivered, the shadows regrouping, readiness to descend once more as a tide. "Hold on," Mike clipped, his eyes wide with determination. But Jenna knew they were still in danger. A memory flickered. The betrayal of a distant relative, an agent of greed, standing at the threshold of her home. Jenna's breath hitched. "That's it. I remember." The realization struck like a lightning bolt. "We need to confront the heart of this curse. We can't let them control us any longer." The shadows roared, monstrous and relentless. "What lies beneath this legacy?" she whispered, a new fear woven into her resolve. The shadows surged forward, and Jenna's heart raced. The next choice would either shatter or bind them forever. What else could be hidden in the darkness? A truth buried too deep to comprehend? The silence fractured as the shadows surged, rage rippling through the air. Mike held tightly to Jenna's wrist, both of them anchored in a luminous determination that shimmered against the encroaching darkness. "Together," he urged, eyes fierce. "We can break this." The shadows hissed, that chilling, collective breath washing over them like a wave of despair, echoing whispers urging Jenna back into the fold of the family legacy. "No," Jenna shouted. "I want to be a part of this. I choose my own path." There was a spark in her voice, a sudden clarity cutting through the haze of torment gripping her mind. A fire ignited within her, pushing back against the shadows, her hands trembling with a newfound strength. A flicker of doubt shivered in Micah's heart. They needed to confront the unseen heart of the curse. What they would see was unknown, filled with treacherous history that had shaped their destinies. But with every heartbeat, the dark aura clung tighter, vengeful and cruel, like a serpent poised to strike. "Tell me what we need to do," Mike implored. They shared a quick glance, acknowledging the gravity of their situation, the urgency clawing at their lungs. The shadows roared in protest, a cacophony of lost souls spiraling around them. "Unravel the truth, Jennifer. Nothing else matters." "No," Jenna screamed, her voice rising above the chaos. "I have a name. I am not just a vessel for fear." With a fierce determination, she pushed against the swirling darkness, stretching her hand toward Mike, trusting him completely. Together, they began to march forward toward the pulsing darkness at the heart of this nightmare. But suddenly, the oppressive mass of shadows surged forward. Mike felt the cold grasp of despair claw up his arm. "Hold on," he shouted, squeezing Jenna's hand so tightly he feared he would fracture her bones. The air around them crackled with ancient energy. Shadows peeked from every angle, swirling menacingly, their whispers morphing into screams. "You cannot escape. This is your fate." They recoiled momentarily, sensing a disturbance, the flickering light from Jenna's grip emanating a wild energy that surged toward the shadows. "I know you," Jenna shouted into the tempest of shadows. "You're the voices of sorrow and regret. You haunt this family with your mistakes. But you will not pull me in. I will rewrite this story." Slowly, she started to recall in vivid detail the ancestral errors that had birthed the curse, the betrayals, the greed, the thirst for power, each one a stepping stone in a dark path that led them here. "I refuse to forge ahead with a legacy of pain." As she focused, Mike felt the shadows tremble. Jenna's voice rose assertively, cutting through the whirling darkness. "We will face the truth together. I'll uncover the past, but I will not let it define me." And at that moment, with a fierce resolve, Jenna hurled the key forward. It broke through the shadowy mass with the strength of her resolve, bursting open through layers of darkness that encumbered them. A brilliant light exploded outward, illuminating the room in a fiery glow. The silhouettes twisted and writhed, drawn into the heart of light that now exposed the harsh truths of their ancestry. Jenna gasped, feeling every dark secret and hidden betrayal come alive around her, a shimmering testament to centuries of grief and struggle. The echoes of her ancestors' regrets rang louder yet within the calm of that light. "Join us. Relinquish your spirit." They struck back forcefully. Jenna pushed harder against the shadows, shouting back every grievance and unfairness she had uncovered. "No, not today. You do not own me. I am more than your pain." With Mike's steadfast presence at her side, they pressed deeper into that dazzling brightness. Hand in hand, they faced the swirling mass, immersed in shadows that shrieked, "You will not defy us." But with each word, their voices fell apart, fading against the harmony of Jenna's assertion. The shadows lost their form as light illuminated every secret, every sin binding their spirits. "What was hidden must be revealed," Jenna declared, firmly, aware that the voices behind the shadows could no longer maintain their hold. And then, with a triumphant surge, the light consumed them entirely. Moments passed, and then a hush fell. The room gradually returned to normalcy, vivid colors returning, sunlight streaming through windows that had long been shuttered. They stood alone in the remnants of the Beaufort estate, where tangible remnants of despair once thrummed with hostility. Jenna looked around, her heart racing. The unsettling energy was gone. Did we do it?" Mike exhaled deeply, relief flooding through him. "I think we did." Suddenly, their eyes caught on an object lying forgotten on the floor, a small, rusted locket. "What?" Jenna knelt and picked it up, and they could see that it was gently glowing, as if purified by the truth they unearthed. Inside was a photograph of a young girl, her likeness strikingly reminiscent of Jenna's, but with an air of tranquility and hope. "They weren't all monsters," Jenna whispered, emotion thick in her throat. "This was their burden, but it can end with us." A wave of peace enveloped them, wrapping them in warmth as they embraced. their souls intertwined with the memory of what had transpired. We've broken the cycle, Mike said softly. We can create our own legacy now. With the jagged past behind them and the promise of tomorrow ahead, the shadows melted away completely, leaving the light of hope to reign within them. Together, they stepped outside into the sunlit day, drawing in deep breaths of fresh air, filling their lungs with freedom at last. Here's to new beginnings, Jenna whispered, squeezing Mike's hand tightly as they walked away from the haunted history of the Beauforts. They were free now, both from their pasts and the shadows that had sought to ensnare them. And so, with hearts lighter than before, they looked forward, embracing the possibilities of a bright future, the legacy they would create, guided by love, strength, and resilience. Now, remember that crucial moment: this was a journey of a lifetime. So don't let it end here. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm. Your support makes a difference. And flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this incredible ending. What did you think? Lastly, don't wait even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who absolutely need to see this conclusion. Only true fans understand how important supporting the channel is.